Hi, my YouTube family and friends. This is Laura at Laura Talks Softer, and I'm sitting in my mama's garage. This garage has been kind of a challenge. When we moved into this house in 1978, it was a two-car garage. I can remember being in this garage and roller skating, and it could hold two cars. Now it just has a lot of stuff in it. Anyway, so I've been cleaning it. It now could hold like one car if I push some stuff away, but my dad put a big I don't know, beam that needs to be removed that's holding rafters with stuff up there, way up there. And anyway, so my mom is sitting out here organizing. Mama.
Hi.
So anyway, she's going, and I found something interesting. Is it going to show backwards? This is The World, 1995. It's a little book, and when I opened it up, I thought, now this is kind of interesting, The World, 1995. And it's predictions. And it starts with, so listen to this. Let me lift up my glasses because I am nearsighted and I can see very well when I look close. Before looking ahead, now get this. This was published in, hold on, copyright 1994, called The World 1995. And it starts with predictions. It's backwards, right? Predictions. Excuse the dust. My nose is running. There's a lot of dust and I've been sweeping. Anyway. Before looking ahead, let's glance back in time, just 5 years. So they're talking about 1990. Now that's, in my mind, in 1995, glancing back in 5 years, that was the year my daughter was born, and she turned 35. So we're talking, 35 years ago here. Back in time, just 5 years. And suppose you read that someone was predicting that between now and then, the Soviet Empire would totally disintegrate and fragment into 15 independent nations. The Japanese investment bubble would collapse with the greatest stock market and real estate losses in human history. Now get this is 1994. And real estate losses in human history. Okay, China would become the world's fastest growing economy. The European Union would become a hollow shell and will probably never be realized. And Chrysler would become the world's most profitable automaker. You probably would have dismissed such forecasts as crazy, unbelievable. Yet all these things actually happened. In one of the most historically significant 5-year periods of the past 1,000 years. So what can we learn from these surprising past events? As we look ahead now, important, keep in mind, everything in this world is picking up speed. Now, let's be reminded, this is 1994. We're in 2026. And not just the pace of technology. Thus, if something is going to happen, it's likelier to happen faster than would normally be expected. Bullet point, another one. We're only just beginning to comprehend the consequences of accelerating technology. Thus, as human behavior is not becoming more civilized, is technology moving too fast for us to assimilate? Will democracy be helped or hurt by live television that gives us instant access to world events? Because here's the trap. Public policy is being influenced by opinion polls, which themselves are shaped by what we see on TV. Now, this is before 9/11 and before September 11th, 2001 happened, and those planes hit the Twin Towers, and the other one, the Pentagon, and the one that went in the field. That was before we had 24/7 television. It's talking about before that technology was going too fast. Okay. Our planet's population is becoming divided into two categories. Those who have enough to eat and those who starve. World population is already out of control and will double in the next 30 years. I don't know. I'd have to check and see, did that happen or not? I'm reading this book and it's called The World 1995. The flow of events, the ups and downs of things that happen are the single biggest factor in how, I'm making sure I'm recording, and how we make and lose money. Thus, a bad thing happening can be a great for a specific investment or business. And of course, the opposite is true. Now, this is before even cryptocurrency was even in anybody's imagination, but maybe not. Maybe they'll predict that in the future. I am just reading this. I didn't read this ahead of time. I'm just reading this and recording. Always remember that events have a ripple effect, and things that happen in China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, or Kurdistan can drastically change your life in all kinds of ways. Remember Kuwait? Thus, never think that what happens over there can't affect your here at home. It can and does. With this in mind, here are 16 global forecasts of coming events that we believe will take place before the end of 1995. 1. New Korean War. 40 years ago, almost as many Americans died fighting to defend the independence of South Korea as were killed in Vietnam. How quickly most of us forget. But today, with so much talk about a North Korean invasion, let's remember this. One man alone made the decision in 1950 to invade South Korea, Kim Il-sung, and he's still in total power today, the most senior of all the world's national leaders. But now it's different. The North Korean economy is moving toward collapse. His main ally, the Soviet Union, no longer exists, and China is lukewarm. North Korea now has the atomic bomb, and South Korean main city and capital Seoul is only 3 or 4 minutes flying time from the border. And finally, Kim Il-sung knows he soon will die. What will he do? A desperate last throw of the dice, using his larger army to try and fulfill his oldest dream, the reunification of Korea, or play the role of the boogeyman for economic and political advantage? Which will it be? Keeping in mind that a new, albeit short, Korean War would have horrendous consequences on the U.S. economy. We forecast that there will be no new war. Kim Il-sung knows there's be no winners in his lifetime. 2. California boom. Okay. A construction boom is coming to Southern California in 1994 and 95, thanks to the recent earthquake. Public buildings, bridges, highways, and homes will need to be rebuilt. Billions of extra dollars will be spent on further quake-proofing undamaged structures all over the state. This $30 billion plus expenditure will be a huge economic boost for California and more than make up for the loss in tourism. Bottom line, we're bullish on California. The state will benefit from a surging Mexico and a booming trade with Southeast Asia. The slump will pass. Okay, it did. And then we're back at it again. 3. Muslim fundamentalism. The tide of Muslim fundamentalism in North Africa and the Near East is very, very scary and will topple the government of Algeria in 1995. Now, these are predictions. The new of 1994 going into 95. The new regime will be bitterly anti-Western, but a majority security risk to the West because of Algeria's monumental domestic problems. Instead, the threat will be directed at other Arab nations, Morocco, especially Tunisia, Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Expect some huge consequences later in the decade. Of course, America has been experiencing something of Muslim fundamentalism firsthand. The bombing of the World Trade Center. Now, the World Trade Center, before those planes hit, it was bombed. Before, I think in 94 or something. And the attempted bombing of key bridges and tunnels in New York. Look for more acts of terrorism, especially on the East Coast. The Great Satan is a natural target. And that's in quote, the Great Satan. 4, changing America. Living in the midst of enormous social change is easy to change. It's easy to overlook how fast things are moving. Example, computers, fax machines, and other new technologies have created a work-at-home class. People who can do whatever it is they do anywhere in the U.S. and rarely see their clients. Many hundreds of thousands of Americans now fall into this category. Significance. Many of these home workers are moving to small towns and rural areas to live work, especially in the West, helping local economies, changing the demographic textures of many towns. Hold on. My mom is saying, waiting the moment why I'm recording. Hold on. My mama did not know I'm recording. Thank God she didn't yell out my name, social security number, address, birth date, and birth weight. I was 7 pounds, 13 ounces. You can know that. And from there on, it's been an upward trend. Been gaining weight ever since. Okay. All right, significance. Okay, many of these home workers are moving to small towns and rural areas to live, work, especially in the West, helping local economies, changing the demographic texture of many towns. Boosting property values, sounds familiar. Spawning a flock of local boutique-type businesses and better restaurants. Such people also big users of mail-order catalogs because much of what they need isn't available locally. So we don't really, the mail-order catalogs, is that not Amazon Prime and the trucks delivering to your door? This trend will accelerate through 94, 95, and far beyond. American society is changing in many ways, and astute investors, business people will profit from these trends. 5, Russian horror. How bad will it be for Russia in 94, 95? Best case scenario, terrible. Worst case, catastrophic. Unfortunately, we forecast the latter. Inflation is already over 20% a month and will drastically increase before the end of the year. The fears of Russian fascism are very real, and ironically, most of the old communists are becoming the new fascists, which shows once again that the extreme right and the extreme left complete the circle and become the same thing. About Vladimir Zhirinovsky, I don't even know how to say that name, whom the Western media call crazy and predict his early self-destruction. He may be a bit crazy, but he's deadly serious. Remember Hitler? He's superbly organized, a charismatic speaker, and by far the best campaigner who knows how to exploit Russian hate and fears. Remember Hitler? He's loaded with money, can outspend anyone else, and his advertising is brilliant. Remember Hitler? Where does Zhirinovsky get all his money? Western intelligence lists 3 sources: the Russian mafia and foreign assets controlled by old communist elements in the Russian armed force, who, by the way, gave him nearly 90% of their vote at the last election. We predict that Western companies who have invested in Russia will lose almost everything as the country plunges into an anti-Western xenophobic madness. Yeltsin is drinking himself to death and is retreating into bouts of severe depression. We also forecast that at least one of the smaller ex-USSR neighboring nations will be invaded, mainly for internal political reasons in Russia. Number 6, Russian mafia. My nose is sniffly all the dust. It's dust. This dust is old. This is like antique dust. Okay, Russia's deadliest export: tanks and guns, nuclear weapons? No, organized crime. The Russian mafia is the largest, fastest growing, most ruthless, most effective criminal organization on the face of this earth. Now, this is written in 1994. We know it's not 1894, and we know it's not future 2094. It's written in 1994. Okay. For example, an estimated 80% of all private businesses in Moscow pay regular extortion money to these thugs. Next to them, the Italian mafia is minor league. Make no mistake, Russian crime is out of control. Example, according to a Russian survey, 70 to 80% of all private enterprises and commercial banks are forced to pay a tribute of 10 to 20% of their income to organized crime. Incredible. And now they're coming here. Several years ago, the Russian mafia began moving into the U.S., conducting massive swindles in fuel oil, extorting Russian immigrants, dealing in drugs, etc. We forecast that this trend will worsen. Many unemployed ex-KGB operatives have now turned to crime, and some have been filtering in this country. I think one is the leader there now, right? 7, private pension scandal. Millions of Americans are facing a ghastly retirement shock. This is 1994, okay? Many of the private pensions to which they've been contributing are either broke or nearly insolvent. So far, the Bush and Clinton administrations, Congress, and federal regulators have kept the lid on this growing disaster. But the cover-up is wearing thin, and this scandal will burst open in 1995. Consider these facts. There are 870,000 private pension plans, policed by only 300 federal investigators, who audited less than 1% of these pensions in 93. Here's the shocker. Of those that were checked, more than 1/3 were found to be committed violations, with many of these pensions hopelessly underfunded. I have a pension. I get information every year now that they change those laws to see how solvent it is. So far, so good. Because of this lack of regulation, many private pension funds have become a personal bank for company owners. Money is secretly borrowed for high living, to pay creditors, to pay for acquisitions, etc. But such funds are rarely paid back. Meanwhile, millions of people keep paying into pensions that can't pay them back what they owe. Investment competence is not a requirement for managing a pension fund. You can be a complete fool with 0 qualifications, and you're permitted to manage millions. This is written in 94. It's warning things. Half of all pensions are insured by the government's Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. Trouble is, the PBGC is hemorrhaging funds because of the deterioration of this situation. It is currently running at a net worth deficit. There will be horrendous consequences to American society and the economy, far greater than the SNL fiasco. Watch out. 8, Mexican revolt. Will the recent revolt in southern Mexico grow and extend to the poverty-stricken slums of Mexico City, now the world's largest city with some 25 million people? Remember, this is written in 1994 for predictions for 1995. No, the revolt is agrarian. It will be contained in the South. The rest of the country will boom with the fastest growing economy in the Western Hemisphere. Now that NAFTA is in place, the foreign investors, though, have been spooked by the fighting. Good time to invest carefully. 9. U.S. defense industry. All the bad news from Russia, of course, is good news for the armed forces and the industrial complex that supplies them. Plans for base closing will continue as they should, because they're not needed, and they were only kept alive for political reasons. But look for new weapon programs to be regarded favorably by the White House and Congress. There will be some very good investment opportunities. And in the early 90s, a major economic drive where I'm at, a major military base and major force in the economy here closed under the Clinton administration. Anyway, 10. Peace prospects in the Mideast. There will be peace between Israel and most of the Arab world, despite the efforts of some Arabs and Jews to prolong hostilities. Why are we so certain? Because Arab companies are itching to do business with Israel and are pushing ahead regardless of their government's official position, excluding, of course, Iraq and Iran. Even Syria and Saudi business groups are quietly visiting Israel. They feel correctly that the synergy is great. Also, shipping through Israel to the Mediterranean would save time and money. They want to make money, not war. U.S. cities looking up, number 11. For the past 40 years, American cities have become horrible examples of waste, incompetence, corruption, union feather bedding, and huge government programs that sometimes do harm than good, more harm than good. Everybody is fed up, but what can we do about it? We predict that major changes are coming to our cities, increasing contractual privatization, a trimming of bloating city bureaucracies, and higher standards of cost effectiveness. City bureaucrats, local politicians, and unions can't run a city together, and now they're going to face the kind of downsizing that large corporations have been doing for the past few years. 12. Asian boom. The business activity in Asia is awesome, and there's terrible lack of a normal infrastructure. Highways, bridges, power plants, subways, schools, and universities, etc. Traffic is terrible. This will change, and nearly $500 billion will be spent over the next 3 years. There will be huge opportunities for U.S. business, and not just for the large general contractors and manufacturers, but also for tens of thousands of smaller suppliers. Investment tip. Pay particular attention to companies building and installing power generating facilities. There will be enormous opportunities. For example, billionaire George Soros and GE Capital Corp have just created a $2.5 billion fund, the sole purpose of which will be to invest in third world power plants. Okay. Asian AIDS threat, number 13. Now, this is in 1994, predicting 95. More than most people realize, AIDS is out of control in certain Asian countries and spreading fast. Thailand, with its booming economy, is the worst example. Official studies, suppressed by the Thai government incidentally, show that 12% of all males drafted into the army are HIV positive. That same report estimates that 20% of the entire population will be HIV positive by the end of this decade. This information has not been released because the government is terrified, and for good reason. The economy of Thailand will be devastated by the end of the decade. And that's the easiest forecast we made of all the ones printed here. Should you invest in Asia? Quite possibly, yes. But first, check out information about AIDS. It's very relevant. 14, China's future. China has the fastest growing economy on earth, the largest population, and has shifted rapidly toward a free market economy. What's next? Long term, we're very bullish. The Chinese are proving once again they're natural capitalists, and there is so much pent-up demand for consumer goods, public services, and a modern infrastructure. Short term is another matter. And here's our prediction. Inflation will leap ahead in the coming 12 months, probably reaching 30% by the spring of 1995. That's almost certain. As the government has chosen to let the economy keep going at full throttle, problem, far more money is available than there are goods and services to buy. So there will be a serious inflation. The question is, what comes next? Hyperinflation? Or will the problem be brought under control? No one can know. Why? Because the inner of the Chinese leadership consists of a few ancient men who sit around every day drinking tea and bickering over policy. Deng, I don't know, Xiaoping, the patriarch is semi-senile, and reading his mind is about as illuminating as reading tea leaves. Anyway, our guess, things will get back on track, and China will be firmly in place as the world's third largest economic power. 15, I'm almost done. These are predictions. Is New Zealand the wave of the future? Here's some good news. New Zealanders may be outnumbered by sheep by 16 to 1, but they certainly don't act like sheep. And we predict this small country will start becoming noticed in 94 as the number one country to emulate. Talk about progressive. It's been ranked first out of 22 nations for the quality of its government policies. It's no longer subsidizes farmers. It ties civil service compensation to job performance, has the world's most efficient welfare state, has a tax system with a low tax rate that's remarkably simple, etc. This is a gem of a nation. And if Vice President Gore needs inspiration for his promised reinventing government, he should look across the Pacific. Now, Vice President Gore, for those of you who don't know, was the vice president under Bill Clinton's administration, and he was the one talking about weather change and climate change way back. 16. New weather crisis. More trouble will come to the Farm Belt in 94-95, and last year's flooding was no isolated event. Prepare for more rains, cooler weather, results higher corn and other grain prices. Why is this happening? Our unusual weather originates with Mount Pinatubo's volcanic eruption in the Philippines in 91. That single blowout sent up twice as much sulfur dioxide in the air as any other volcanic eruption in this century. Significance: this ash green sunlight dropped global temperatures to the lowest in 60 years. Meanwhile, Pinatubo has massively erupted this past summer, which means more bad news for 94. Anyway, so yeah, that was the world 1995. Let me do a little, okay, I'm looking down, let me flip it. And it was just predictions, and I read it so you can listen to it, have fun listening to it. If you think about it, oh, I'm sitting on concrete, my butt hurts. Anyway, if you think about it, this, I was sitting too long. You know, what would be the predictions coming up into, ending into 2026, ending into the 20s, you know? This is going back, you know, this is as we were approaching, you know, the next millennial, you know, this is just, there's always been change and always stuff, but things are changing fast. I really liked what it talked about. You know, we are not keeping up with this technology at all, and the laws behind it and the ethics behind it, and how fast information can get out there, and how inaccurate it can be, and how it can be a whole lot of propaganda. It could be throwing fuel on situations that could create escalations, you know, beyond measure. We have to seek truth, and we have to be looking for justice, and we have to approach things with a merciful heart as well. Take care and peace.